What is up, fight fans? Good morning on the West Coast. Happy lunchtime. That was corny on the East Coast, but we're working on it. It's Tuesday, and it's UFC Fallout right here on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source in news and entertainment and mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. We got Jeff Cain here in the building. Well, not really here in the building with me, but you know what I'm saying. He's here, and he's ready to rock. We got a big show here today. The fallout from UFC 262 is everywhere. It's going in every direction. What a night of fights. What a card. One of the best I've seen in a long time. The UFC delivers again. Huge, huge night in Houston. And the coronation, the lifelong dream, and the long circuitous journey of Charles Oliveira ends up. Well, it doesn't end. It right now has UFC gold around his waist. What a night for Oliveira. What a night for Beneil Dariush and some others as well. We're going to go through all the ins and outs and everything that we're thinking moving forward as a result of the fallout from UFC 262. Jeff, and what a night it was, man. I got the co-main event right. I got the main event wrong. I came very close, as did a lot of people, to picking that main event correctly. But what a fight, man. Let's start there. That main event, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, delivered in a big-time way for all of us and for the UFC. What a fight. It wasn't that long of a fight, but what an incredible fight those two guys put on.
Yeah, it was definitely some momentum changing back and forth in that fight. You know, the pendulum swung in Oliveira's favor. It swung back in Chandler's favor, and then it ended in Oliveira's favor. Yeah, it was a crazy night of fights, crazy main event. And the co-main event was even a little nuts considering everything that happened in that fight.
Yep.
Yeah,
and for the record, I'd be pissed too if I were Tony Ferguson, if I were being out grappled like that. And, you know, I mean, it's not the way that you want to lose fights. You know, you want guys to go in there and throw hands with you. You don't want to just get dry humped for 3 rounds and lose a fight that way. And I hate to say it like that because it's mixed martial arts and it's a big part of the sport. But, you know, you'd like to see a little bit more of the mixed part. Although Beneil Dariush, man, you can't blame him. You can't blame him for doing what he did. They saw the path to victory, and they took it. But what I'm confused about, Jeff, and I know you're a jiu-jitsu guy. You've done it for years. Your son does it. You know, obviously you've been around a long time. How is Tony Ferguson being manhandled like this back-to-back? And I know Oliveira, look, 3rd-degree black belt, sure. But Dariush and Ferguson seemingly about on the same level skill-wise. What's going on with El Kukui, man?
Just getting out grappled. You know, the sport changes. you know, Tony's had a lot of injuries and stuff lately, and you know, and he's had time. And at his age, there's no time off. You know, time off is time getting behind. Time off is everybody moving forward without you. And I think that that's what's happened with Tony Ferguson. I mean, that's what looks like happened to Tony Ferguson. I mean, in the Gaethje fight, he got outstruck. That can happen, you know, against Justin Gaethje for sure. That can happen to anybody, really. But the last 2 fights, Tony's just been out grappled, right? He's just been taken down and controlled on the top and out grappled. What worries me about that for Tony Ferguson is that's not a problem easily fixed, and that might not be a problem that can be fixed at his age. That usually takes years to fix. But yeah, man, I mean, Dariush just completely dominated him. And, you know, for the people that don't like grappling, you know, look, the whole idea of fighting, that the whole essence of it is to inflict as much damage as possible with taking as little damage as possible. That's the whole purpose of it. And to take someone down does that for you. You know, you can win a fight and take no damage. And so you win in multiple ways. Like Dariush is ready to go. You know, he doesn't have to worry about a black eye or stitches or broken orbitals or broken noses or anything. And so I understand why he did what he did. And props to him for that. I mean, he dominated a guy who's highly respected in the division and made it a one-sided fight with his ability to take him down and control him.
And Tony's had some problems with his team and his corner. Remember last year, late in the year, the Oliveira fight, he was like, hey, one of my cornermen wasn't there the whole camp. And, you know, it caused problems in the fight with cohesion. And then he pulled, you know, Wrek backstage. And, you know, it's just one of those things. He stopped working with Eddie Bravo. You know, obviously he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Eddie Bravo. And Tony's had some things that have happened in his career. And you look at these things and you're like, how does this happen with a guy at his level? How does this happen to Tony Ferguson? How do these things, and it's part of the sport, But I look at El Kukui, man. He is, I mean, such a G. Think about that. Dariush said his knee popped loud with that heel hook, Jeff. His knee popped loud. And the Oliveira fight, the armbar, almost anybody in the world would have tapped. Justin Gaethje fight, almost anyone in the world would have been knocked out 100 times in that fight. Tony wasn't. Here's a little footage of the Dariush fight. And Dariush did throw some pretty good leg kicks, but for the most part, it was just this. It was Tony Ferguson on his back, unable to get up for 3 rounds, 2.5 rounds of that fight. Unable to get up, and at no point in time did it ever seem like he was going to get up, Jeff. You looked at that and you went, wow, there's 2.5 minutes left. He's not getting up. You just kind of felt it. There's 4 minutes left, 4.5 minutes left in the round. He's not getting up. Dariush did a great job, and I'm not taking anything away from him. It wasn't an exciting fight by any means in terms of, what fans really want to see. You get those once in a while, but like you said, you got to win the fight. You got to win the fight, and for Beneil Dariush, Jeff, it worked like a charm. Look at where this guy went. You have a vote in the rankings. Dariush goes from number 9 to number 3 in the division with that win, which is a huge jump. I'm surprised how far he went over Hooker, RDA. Ferguson only dropped 1 spot to 6, Connor, and then Chandler. And then you have Gaethje and Poirier at 2 and 1, and then Oliveira now the champ. But a big jump, surprising jump in my mind for Dariush. I definitely don't see him as a top 3. I know you're going to be shocked at that. I don't see him as a top 3 in the division or whatever division, wherever he is. I just don't see him being that good. He's got a big-time win streak and now a win over Ferguson, and here's where I'm going to get myself in trouble again. I don't put that much weight on the win over Ferguson like they did for Oliveira and they did, for him. So for Oliveira to win the belt is great. He beats Michael Chandler. I didn't think either guy deserved the title fight. They put on a great show. To me, it should have been a title eliminator, but Oliveira's the champ, and you can't help but feel great for him, man. You can't help but feel really, really good for Dubronx. I mean, to see his parade and his people in Brazil and the reactions there and, the way that he fought, Jeff, he was 10-8 at one point. 10-8 over a couple of year stretch, and then all of a sudden he turns it on, he figures it out, moves to his weight class now and at lightweight, and literally has won, 10 of 11, and finished all of them. Finished every single one of those 10 wins. So I will say this right now, okay? Charles Oliveira deserves to be the champion in the lightweight division. I said it. He deserves to be the champ. Now, did he beat Gaethje? No. Did he beat Poirier? No. He's going to get the chance to, and then we'll see how good he is. Like you like to point out, Matt Hughes said you're not the champ till you defend the belt, and it looks like Gaethje's going to be that guy, but Poirier and McGregor could change everything if one of them puts on a highlight reel performance in July in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Oliveira's on the longest win streak. He's got the most finishes in the UFC, the most submissions. I mean, he's got the tied for the most performance bonuses. People were just sleeping on Charles Oliveira. Khabib said that, and that's just the way it was. People were sleeping on him. Charles Oliveira is the champion, and it doesn't matter what happens in these other fights. He's still going to be the champion until somebody takes that from him. And Matt Hughes said that. I mean, I've quoted Matt Hughes as saying that. Matt Hughes said that because he bitterly lost the title and said, "You're not the champion until you defend it." And well, GSP then defended it.
Multiple times.
Yeah, and I think Oliveira probably. Well, it depends on. Oliveira is a tough matchup for everybody in that division. That's the thing with him is he's not just a striker. He's not just a grappler. There's no one path to beat him. You've got to. Chandler wasn't able to go out there and outstrike Oliveira and beat him that way. You're likely not going to out grapple him, and so he's a tough matchup for a lot of people in that division. But he has lost fights in his career, several of them. It's just a testament of his persistence and determination. Really, look, some people get pushed to this big stage before they're ready. They look great on the regional circuit, and then they get up here and we see them struggle in the UFC. Some of them are able to get over that hump and catch up to the competition, and other people aren't. Oliveira's been there a long time, and he's been able to catch up. And basically, what he's done is he's added a world-class striking game to his already to his already established skill set. He's going to be a tough nut to take that belt from, in my opinion, but. The guys that he's going to have to fight are the guys like Chandler, the guys that are one-punch knockout artists. McGregor, Poirier's not quite a one-punch knockout guy, but he's predominantly known for his striking,
Yeah, and he pieced up Conor pretty good in that fight, and that was very impressive to watch what he did. And yeah, Oliveira is going to be a tough out for anyone. And you see him up there now. His little victory lap around the octagon was so, I mean, just the pure joy on his face, man. You had to feel good for him. And Michael Chandler has nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, he drops to number 4, but a great performance by him. Just couldn't quite get that finish in the first round, Jeff. I mean, it started out pretty good for Chandler. He hit Oliveira with a decent shot in the first round, and then Oliveira ducks under, gets a takedown, working for a submission, had the triangle locked in. You thought Chandler was finished right there. He fights it off, gets up, and almost finishes Oliveira with a barrage of shots, ground and pound, and he just could not finish him. Oliveira took a ton of big-time shots and withstood them. Michael Chandler couldn't do that in the second round, and you know, sometimes it's just punch placement, whatever it is. But, man, Oliveira in that second round came out, and his striking, we talked about it going into the fight, man. We talked about it a lot going into the fight. Looking back at that second round against Kevin Lee, his angles, his movement, his uppercut is devastating. His hooks have a lot of power. He is a great, great striker. And people in the chat are saying Khabib's ducking him. How fast things change. Khabib ducked him. That's why he retired. I mean, now that's a narrative that people are pushing. But I really, and this is what Hans says in the chat room. Hans, I think it's Hans Hamann or Hans Heyman, whatever. He says, Charles Oliveira has tremendous spirit. I really feel like he is a wonderful person. It shows through. Additionally, he is supremely accurate and superbly technical, incredibly skilled. That pretty much sums it up. Good job, Hans.
Yeah, no, I mean Oliveira is a well-rounded fighter. You know, I mean, I think that he's the best fighter in the division when it comes to skill set and well-roundedness. I mean, he doesn't have holes that some of the other people have. I mean, we've seen the holes in Conor McGregor's game. He's not the greatest when you take him down. Yeah,
look at that. Look at that, Jeff. Just look at the shots he's taken. How did he survive? And there's the Oliveira shot.
They aren't landing clean. You know, Chandler addressed that in the post-fight press conference. You know, he said he couldn't get a beat on his head. He's moving his head, and he couldn't get a real good clean shot in there after that first one. You know, after the initial one. Look, Oliveira's a veteran, man. You know, I mean, he's not going to be one of those guys that just turtle up. He's going to continue to move, and he's long, and so that allows. You know, he's able to take a big shot. And because he's so long, he can use his legs to keep you off of him and to keep pushing you away from him, and up kicks that can finish you to where you don't get to follow up on those big shots that much. I thought he did a great job. You know, when he got hurt, he did what he needed to do to avoid the strikes. He didn't take any big shots after that, and then made it to the second round and then did what he did. And that was mainly because of a straight punch. I mean, whenever you look at that replay, the one knock on Chandler's striking is his punches get a little wide, right? And he gets a little wild sometimes, especially when he's going for the finish. And Charles was able to stay in the pocket and just throw a straight down the middle at it, and it connected, you know, and that was it.
Incredible, man. Guys like him, guys like Jan Blachowicz, you know what I mean? Guys like Anthony Smith, who never won the belt, who lost a bunch of times on the way, had the guts, the drive, the belief in themselves to keep going, Jeff, and keep fighting. Oliveira, in August of 2011, he lost to Cowboy Cerrone by TKO and went to 14-2. Then he won a couple in a row, dropped 2 in a row to Cub Swanson and Frankie Edgar, a couple of guys you might have heard of. Then he rips off 4 in a row, including Jeremy Stevens and Nick Lentz, to get to Max Holloway, where Max Holloway won by TKO with a neck injury. And then he beats Miles Jury. And then he loses back-to-back to Pettis and Ricardo Lamas. And then he beats Will Brooks, loses to Paul Felder in his first fight back at lightweight. Actually, Brooks was his return to lightweight. He was 1-1 after the loss to Felder. And then he just started ripping him off, man. Guida, Giagos, Miller, Tamer, Lentz, Gordon, Lee, Ferguson, Chandler. And there he is. But I think, Jeff, as you watch this fight, Oliveira definitely has the goods to be the champ for a long time. This is a brutal division, but when you look at the guys at the top, man, and this I don't want to know what you guys think in the chat, and I got your message. Hans Hamann is his name. Appreciate him and appreciate all you guys in the chat. And we have a question for Jeff in a minute about Conor McGregor. Tease. But anyway, Oliveira has all the skills on the feet, on the ground, to be the champion in this division for a long time. And as I look at the top of the division, I think the guy with the best chance to beat him is Poirier, because he's got the skills on both levels to do it. but I don't see McGregor having much success against him, although Conor would open as a favorite. And I don't think that's the best matchup for Justin Gaethje either. I think Poirier probably gives him the most problems. But that being said, I want to ask you your thoughts on that. Who do you see being the toughest fight for him in that division? I say Poirier. And two, I think he really has the goods to be a star. Had Nate Diaz stayed on this card and more people been watching it, you'd see those numbers jump through the roof. If he gets the chance to fight Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier, he's going to pick up tons and tons of fans. But I think he has the potential to be a big-time breakout star, minus one thing, communication. He's got the personality, he's got everything, but he doesn't have the English. And I don't know that he needs it, but I want to get your thoughts on both those things. Who's the toughest fight for him, and how big of a star can he be?
He matches up well with everybody. I mean, what's going to sound crazy is the toughest fight for him skill set wise might be Dariush.
Wow.
Just because there's, you know what I mean? And I know people are going to be like, oh, Dariush, what do you mean? I'm just saying that he's well-rounded. And Oliveira is not going to have a clear-cut advantage. He'll have a striking advantage in that fight, I think. Dariush sure put on a clinic the other night. I mean, whenever he was striking, he was out-striking Tony Ferguson before he took him down.
Maybe if he wins the belt, he'll finally get his Tesla, Elon. Maybe it'll finally be delivered.
Yeah. But, I mean, with McGregor and Gaethje, you got to worry about getting knocked out. I mean, that's your primary concern. Right? Outside of that, everything else goes way down the list. You don't worry about anything else other than their hands, particularly. Well, Gaethje, you do worry about the leg kicks, but, it's mainly striking. Poirier, you got to worry about, him getting you down, and he's definitely well-versed on the ground. I mean, I really do think Dariush might be the toughest matchup. On paper, we're just talking about on paper. Like, whenever these things actually play out in real time in the cage, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
There's Beneil. I'm shocked he moved up 6 spots, Jeff. I'm shocked. I am.
Well, it's just because nobody's on a win streak in that division. He's on this long win streak, and then the top of the division have been fighting each other, and so all of those guys from 6 through 10 can't go anywhere. They're stuck in the mud, to quote Conor McGregor. There's nowhere for them to go, and they can't get a fight with somebody in the top 5 to move up. And so they're really just kind of waiting for this top of this division to play out and them to keep losing. Because that's the only way they're going to move up, because they aren't getting those fights. And Dariush got a fight, and he jumped up in the rankings. But the rankings people read too much into them. We're getting ready to have Conor fight. If Conor wins, then he's going to jump back over Dariush, and so there's going to be movement in those rankings depending on what happens in these next coming events through July.
Yeah, man. And I think if Oliveira can beat Gaethje and then beat the winner of Conor and Poirier back to back, there might be a chance you could poke the bear. There might be a chance you could stoke the competitive fires of Khabib Nurmagomedov and get the eagle back in the octagon. I think it's a very slim chance, but I do think if Oliveira wins a couple in a row and he's up at 11 wins in a row and he never fought Khabib, there might be a chance. And one of the comments in the chat, good point, Jim, communication is important for Oliveira because he has the potential to be a big superstar. Hassan Amiri. Fighting Conor McGregor eliminates that language barrier, and he becomes a huge star, as everyone has on Red Panty Night. And I think that those 2 wins would put him on that level to possibly get Khabib to entertain the thought of fighting him by the end of the year. Wouldn't that be awesome? He wins 2 more fights, and that gets Khabib back. Khabib's not coming back to fight Conor no matter what. Khabib's not coming back to fight Poirier no matter what. He's not coming back for anybody other than what he said was GSP. We don't think that's going to happen. But I do think Oliveira, with that style, would be a great test for Khabib, and that might be what gets Khabib back, the actual element of competition and that challenge, because that's the type of dude he is.
Maybe. I don't know about Khabib, if Khabib will come back or not. I know that that's the fight people want, and and he retired undefeated, and he was the champion, and people are going to continue to talk about Khabib for a long time to come. But Khabib's not the champion. Charles Oliveira is the champion, and he is a tough matchup for Khabib. He's a tough matchup for everybody. That's what I'm saying. There's no clear area. There's no clear path to beat Charles Oliveira. Is he beatable? Absolutely. Everybody is. But to game plan for a guy, you're like, if for instance, if I'm fighting Gaethje, my plan is to take him down, right? I'm not dealing with the leg kicks. I'm not dealing with the power that he has in his punches. And same with Chandler. I'm just going to try to take him down. That's my whole strategy. This whole fight: avoid a bomb, take him down. With Poirier,
but they're both great wrestlers.
Yeah,
they're both great wrestlers.
But wrestling doesn't tap you out and beat you. That's just a control. They can control me, but I don't feel like they have that threat. We're like if I fight Charles Oliveira, to take Charles Oliveira to the ground poses a significant threat.
Look at him, man. He's a star. Look at him. Look at that hair, the glasses. Look at him, Jeff.
You might be better off standing with him. I'm just saying that he's hard to game plan for. And he doesn't need to speak English to be a big star. Anderson Silva, while he could speak English, he did not speak English at press conferences or in public for the majority of his career. His reign, really, for the most part. We saw the pictures and we saw the videos. The guy's an incredible star already in his home country. It's just a matter of is he marketable in the United States? That's hard to say, but that belt does a lot for that, right? I mean, all he has to do is stand there and smile and hold that belt, and you're pretty marketable.
Yeah, Diaz would have helped a lot, man. I said it earlier, but it's funny. It's literally Khabib is polarizing for sure. Hassan says, "I'll pay anything to watch Khabib again." Alex Alyssa says, "Khabib afraid to lose, not to find a worthy fighter." That actually makes me laugh. It's not Khabib's not afraid to lose. He's wrestled a bear as a baby. And he's not afraid to lose to anyone or anything. And, he's supremely confident, as he should be. And the thing that sticks out to me about Khabib, Jeff, more than anything, and there he is up there on the screen, and that's the farce of a title fight that they had to put together last second with Ally Aquinta somehow fighting for a title. But to me, Khabib was peaking, man. He was getting better every fight. He looked his best that I've ever seen him against Gaethje. His striking had gotten to that level. Knocking Conor down, Poirier, Gaethje, withstanding the choke against Poirier, not tapping and then tapping Poirier out. I mean, I thought we were seeing the best version of the Eagle right then and there, and he walked away on top. He's Michael Jordan in 1993. He walked away on top. I mean, very rarely do you see an athlete do that. Very rarely do you see an athlete do what Michael Jordan did in 1993 and walk away at the peak of his powers in the middle of his prime as he's still improving and getting better. And the common thing is both their fathers died. Actually, I mean, there's a big commonality between them right there.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't make the I mean, that's actually, I guess, a pretty valid point. That's not something I considered. But yeah, they both walked away at the height of their sport. They both suffered, family tragedies that preceding that decision. I don't know. There's holes in Khabib's game. Khabib doesn't have great head movement. Khabib does get hit. Khabib's able to outstrike people because his threat of a takedown is so significant. If he gets you down, you are done. You're not getting back up. You just know.
But do you think that's the case with Oliveira? Do you think that's with him? Would that be, because that would be, I would love to see that. I mean, that's one of the fights that I'd love to see start on the ground. That'd be awesome.
Well, I think that you have to. I think whenever you fight Khabib, you better not be throwing leg kicks and things like that, and give him an easy path to take you down. And so it's going to take away some of Oliveira's game if they were to fight. I mean, Oliveira's going to have to rely on boxing. And like I said, whenever you're fighting somebody that has the takedown ability that Khabib has, your hands drop because you have to sprawl. You've got to be ready. And it consumes your head. Like you're out there, you're just thinking, God dang, he's going to take me down. Watch for the shoot. Watch for the shoot. Watch for the shoot. Boom. You get hit and you're like, shit. And so in a lot of ways, Khabib beats you without ever doing anything. He because his threat of the takedown is so significant, and his ability to finish once he's on top, you just can't afford to be underneath Khabib Nurmagomedov, and so you do things.
Look at that ear
when you face him.
Look at that ear, man. I saw a meme the other day that said nature's warning signs, and it was like a tiger's teeth showing, a shark with its mouth open, and it was an ear like that. Nature's warning signs. Don't fuck with these. And the ear was one of them. And look at that ear is not, but it's unbelievable when you think of what Khabib was able to accomplish. And I've been a little critical of his, where people think that he's the GOAT. And Jeff, you have a great point where you say you don't need to be a 2-division champ to be considered one of the best. Some guys aren't conducive to that, their body shape and type and all that. Some guys can go do it, some girls can do it, some can't. I don't think it should be, weighted for you or held against you that you're only in one weight class dominating. The things that I had against Khabib when I'm talking about the GOATs, and I'm talking about the quality of competition that GSP, Silva, and especially John Jones faced, beat, dominated compared to who Khabib fought. He fought who he fought and who was in front of him at the time. I believe it's the best thing in the world for Tony Ferguson that he never fought Khabib, because the end of Tony Ferguson would have come years earlier. But I think that Khabib is an all-time great. I think that he has not fought the level, or did not fight the level of competition that a lot of the other all-time greats fought, and that's why I put him a notch below. That reason only, but he's undefeated. He beat everybody he fought, and we'll see if he comes back. But for right now, this is Charles Oliveira's time, Jeff. What a performance against Chandler. Look, Chandler lived up to everything that was built up about him coming into this fight. He lived up to the expectations. He lived up to the type of performance we thought he would give. And I'm sure that, Oliveira would tell you that. But it was a great fight. Oliveira's the champ, and I just would love to see him get a couple more wins and then have, entice Khabib to come out. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting fight because, like I said, and I think Khabib recognizes that Oliveira presents a different puzzle. He presents a more difficult puzzle than what Khabib what was there for Khabib when he left. I'll put it that way.
And Raging Al went the distance with him, by the way. He's the only guy to do it in those last few fights. So I don't want to knock Raging Al too much. He did push Khabib 5 rounds.
Well, I mean, styles make fights, and that was a short notice kind of a deal, and I felt like Khabib just kind of wanted a W there, right? Just get the W and get out of here. Don't take any stupid risks, because look, when things pop up, huh?
He did dominate. There was never a doubt in that fight, but it did go 5.
No, but he didn't put himself in crazy danger because there was no need to. Those are the dangerous times in a career, when you get a switch of an opponent, you prepared for somebody else, and then if something's going to go wrong, those are the moments. And Khabib said, "Oh hell no, I'm just going to keep doing what I do," and he was able to beat Rage. Now, yeah, props to Al. Look, Ian Quinn is a tough dude, right? I mean, Ian Quinn is a special kind of a cat.
And you go in 1 week, Jeff. In 1 week, he went from fighting Tony Ferguson to Max Holloway to Raging Al, literally in like a 3 or 4 day period. So that's not easy either.
Yeah, I would have loved to. I wish Max would have got that fight. I'm not saying Max would have won at all. I just know the effort Max would have put in and Max's boxing, and it could have got interesting. That fight could have got interesting. Of course, I would pick Khabib to win the fight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Max,
there it is, Khabib versus Holloway right there.
Yeah, that would have been a fun fight, because Max is always a fun fight, and Khabib's always a fun fight. But yeah, I honestly don't think we'll see Khabib back. I think that he's content doing what he does, and still being around the sport, but just not competing in it. It takes a lot of sacrifice. But I think it's the thing that people maybe underestimating. We as fans kind of, we're like, oh, why would you hang it up? I mean, you spend so much time away from your family, and so much sacrifices away from family events and gatherings, and just everything. Your whole life is constructed around training camps, diet, and fights, and so at some point, you have to weigh that balance. And for Khabib, it doesn't make sense for him to do it anymore, or to him, it doesn't. It's not worth the time and the energy that he has to do to maintain that undefeated record to do it anymore. And look, like if somebody says they want to retire, let them retire, because they're not in it mentally. Physically, Khabib's still Khabib, but mentally, I think that he's just like done everything he's needed to do, and he's backing out. GSP, that's why GSP retired. It was too much mentally. It's too much to stay on top of the world. It's everybody's gunning for you. It's a friggin' nerve-wracking place to be when you have people who've trained for 20 years to kick your ass, and you have to maintain that excellent level. It's like Ronda Rousey said, you have to be the best in the world on your worst day, and that's a hard mentality to maintain over long periods of time.
So Junior or JR Manuel says, after he told us, or me, to wipe my lips, I'm assuming because I was praising Khabib, but he has a great point. Mean Khabib not fighting Tony. Tony would have beat that boy 5 years ago. And then Always Testy says, yeah, agreed. A lot of people think Tony would have beaten Khabib, and I don't. I think he would have gotten mauled, possibly to death. But I literally think that, that would have been people think it would have been the biggest test for Khabib. I thought the Conor fight was closer, a little closer than most people thought. I thought Poirier was his biggest test, and Poirier almost choked him out, if you remember that fight a couple of years ago on Fight Island, before it was Fight Island. But I think back on Khabib's career and his fights, and he just kept getting better and better and better. But the Oliveira fight would be interesting, man, because he dominated Gaethje and for the most part dominated Poirier, and he obviously dominated Conor for the most part. So Oliveira to me would be the toughest fight for him. I think as I look at the top of that division, Jeff, I mean, there's a lot of good fights to make in the aftermath, the fallout of UFC 262. So you got Oliveira on top. Conventional wisdom and Dana White have said that it would be Gaethje next. So Gaethje is in a great position. He's probably going to get the shot unless, like I said, they wait it out and Conor or Poirier puts on a show. I believe it should be Poirier's to lose. I think they should wait until Conor and Poirier, let Poirier knock Conor out again, which I believe he will do, or finish him on the ground, which I believe he'll do one of the two. And I think it'll be a good fight, but I believe right now I would pick Poirier. So Poirier wins that fight. To me, it's his. But I couldn't argue if Gaethje got the shot either. Either one I'm okay with. What about you? You're part owner. I mean, your say way is more than mine. So
yeah, I mean it doesn't
doesn't
matter what the UFC wants. It's going to be a timing deal. It's going to be how much damage Poirier or Conor take in that fight, and when can they turn around and fight again, and when does Oliveira want to fight again? Oliveira might just want to shine that belt for a few months and bask in his accomplishment. Because that's where we are with Ngannou right now. He's not going to want to come back until the end of August or whatever. And so it comes down to the time frame. But yeah, it's going to be Gaethje, or it's going to be the winner of Poirier McGregor. I mean, I think that goes without saying. I don't know which it's going to be though. And Dana was hesitant to say because we don't know. If Conor wins, then of course they're going to do Conor McGregor, right? I mean, it makes all the sense. Conor McGregor in a title fight. I think he loses to Oliveira, but that's the biggest fight that they can do outside of the trilogy that they're already getting ready to do in July. And then Gaethje, I almost think that Gaethje's been sitting around. We've the world's kind of forgotten about Justin Gaethje in a way. The Chandler came in and took over, and he was the buzz, and now Oliveira is the buzz. We're still talking about Khabib. We're talking about Conor. We're talking about Poirier, but what we're not talking about is Justin Gaethje. And so the UFC might throw Gaethje in another fight before he gets a title fight. And I'm fine with that too. However they want to do it. But I feel like Justin's kind of he needs to go out and do something crazy, say something crazy, get some headlines, Justin. Don't do anything stupid, but definitely do something that's going to grab a headline.
Man, I'll tell you what. When's the last time Conor McGregor won a meaningful fight? I'm just going to say it. I'm going to ask. Cowboy Cerrone doesn't count. Everyone's beating him now. When's the last time Conor won a meaningful fight? And when's the last time Conor beat a legitimate world-class guy? A lot of people think the Diaz fight, the second one, he didn't actually win. There's Justin Gaethje. I mean, it's just that was the Poirier-Gaethje fight in Arizona, the last time they were in Glendale, which they'll be there in my neck of the woods coming up here in June. But that fight, Gaethje and Poirier, and Gaethje lost to Poirier. It was a war. Both guys were out on their feet a couple of times in that fight. I was 15 feet away. One of the best fights I've seen, Gaethje and Poirier. If they got a chance to run that back, no one would complain. And then Gaethje obviously outclassed in the Khabib fight in a major way, and those are his losses. And the Khabib fight is his recent one, and Poirier also lost to Khabib. So you can't hold those losses against Gaethje and Poirier and claim Oliveira is the best guy in the division because he didn't fight Khabib. They lost to Khabib, but he didn't fight them, and he didn't fight Khabib. He hasn't fought any of them. So until he fights Poirier and Gaethje, we have no way of knowing if he's better than them or not, and I can't wait to see either one. I don't think Conor's going to be a factor in this division or any division for a title. I just don't. I think those days are gone. Now, never to count Conor out, never. He could come back and destroy Poirier in 30 seconds, or he could get dominated again. You never know what you're going to see with Conor McGregor, but I do know this. When you take that much time off and your interests are so diverse and widespread, and you've had the troubles that he's had, and they just had another baby, and all that money, number one on the Forbes list, it's true, Jeff, that causes problems. A lot of athletes are never the same once they have those things happen in their lives. Now, Conor could prove me wrong, but I just don't think he's going to be a factor in this division this year. I think he's going to be a factor because he fights Poirier, and they're going to make a lot of money, but I believe he gets smashed in that fight, and Conor as a title contender is no more.
I mean, we'll see. Conor landed some shots on Poirier.
He did.
It's Conor's game. Look, Conor's never been well-rounded. I mean, and people can say what the hell they want about Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's a boxer with knockout power.
He is.
He's able to close the distance very well, and he's extremely accurate. He doesn't have great head movement. He doesn't have great grappling. He doesn't really even have great kicks. And so Conor's time was always time-stamped anyway. In my opinion, it was just a matter of the streak to come to an end, and the cracks in the facade to come to light. I mean, because as far as the fighters in that division, Poirier's a better fighter, I think. Gaethje's a better fighter, I think. I don't know. I think that Gaethje's more well-rounded than Conor, but they kind of play the same game, and Conor's better at it. So maybe I'll stop on that. But
so we had a question for you. Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you finishing up there? No, I was going to say someone put a question in there for you about, do you think Conor would fight? And I can't find it. It was a while back. So I apologize to whoever asked that question, and I'm looking for it now. I want to try to find it and give this guy props for it. It was okay. Hassan, it's Hassan Amiri. Jeff, do you think loser of McGregor versus Poirier will fight Chandler? It might be a little too soon to even make a prediction on that, but that'd be a great fight. They have a lot of options in this division for all these guys. There are a ton of options for Conor, ton of options for Tony. RDA's right there. He's a former champion. You got Chandler, options for Dariush and Gaethje and Poirier. There's a lot of fights that can happen in this division this year. There are going to be a lot of big-time fights at 55.
Well, I mean, the thing about Conor, if Conor loses to McGregor, will we see Conor fight? I know that the UFC would love to put together the Diaz trilogy, and there's big fights, but from a Conor McGregor standpoint, you just lost back-to-back fights. You're out of relevancy in the lightweight division. You've got more money than you ever dreamed you would ever have. Do we even see him fight again after that? And I know that might be an uncomfortable question. The thought of Conor McGregor no longer fighting. But I think it's a legitimate one, man. I mean, if he loses to Poirier, I'm not confident that we'll see Conor McGregor in the octagon again. There's no need to. And the more losses he takes, the more damage he does to his legacy that was already kind of on shaky ground to begin with. And so I don't know that he fights again if he loses to Poirier, to be honest with you, because another loss then without defending a belt, and those conversations come up. Was Conor McGregor ever that good? And you saw that happen to Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey dominated her division, killed everybody. And then once she started losing, that's the questions everybody brought up. Was she ever really that good? And I think that's what people will be saying about Conor this time next year.
Wow, here we go. MMA Weekly, please give a shout out. It's 11 p.m., almost 1,000 miles away from Nepal, land of Mount Everest and Lord Buddha. What's up, Santosh Bandari? There's your shout out from Nepal, Jeff. I love it.
Mount Everest, man. I watch a shit ton of Mount Everest documentaries, and I don't know what I'll tell you what my fascination of it is. I think it was Hemingway said there's only people who sports that you put everything on the line. There's auto racing and there's mountain climbing, and all other sports are just games, man. They're just games. And the trails of bodies, man. I mean, there's literally landmarks. They're like, where are you on Mount Everest? I'm like, well, I just passed Green Shoe Guy that's been frozen here for 70 years.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just crazy. Those guys are nuts, man. Those, and that's why I watch it. It's because I can't relate to standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and saying, I want to climb that thing. It just seems like the craziest shit in the world to me. That's not what I say, Jim. I might say, give me a helicopter. Let's go to the top.
Norgay. Those guys did it. 1953. Hillary and Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. They made it. They were the first ones.
It's fascinating culture, man.
Crazy
Those mountain climbers are fascinating little culture, man. They're I don't do it, and there's a reason why I don't do it. It's because I'm a pansy ass. I'm not getting out there on that thing, freezing and having to do that, man. Those people are a different type of character. You might see that there's Tony Ferguson's futures climbing Mount Everest. He could do that,
dude.
He could
Yeah, he
succeed at
could do that. We know he wouldn't stop till he reached the summit, and I love El Kakui. He says, now I'm pissed. But, Jeff, what fights do you want to see? There's Tony. It ain't over yet, McGavin. The way I see it, we've only just begun. Happy Gilmore. Retire and give these MFs a break? Nope, not on my watch. Now I'm pissed. Tony Ferguson. I love him, man. He's a G, but I don't want him to be eating through a straw and not remember his name in 20 years either, Jeff. And at some point in your career, approaching 39, there's a fine line. And the good thing about Tony, these last few fights, Gaethje, of course, notwithstanding, that was a brutal beating. But Oliveira and Dariush, he didn't really take any damage, minus his arm and his leg with the submissions. But, you know, as far as taking shots, he didn't really take much in either one of those fights.
Yeah, he didn't suffer any head damage. Let's put it that way. I mean, he may very well have, and I haven't seen reports on it, but I mean, I'd be shocked if he didn't if he didn't have his ACL rip. And I mean, you know, something popped, and you know that's why they banned that heel hook from like kids competitions and stuff. Is it's the time to tap, like the moment you realize you have to tap is already too late. And so I agree that Ryan shouldn't be competing with heel hooks, but I'd be shocked, man, if Ferguson didn't have a torn ACL or an MCL or something, man. That knee popped and he grimaced, and then as Dariush said, he just went into zombie mode, like
started kicking him.
Tony does. Yeah, it started kicking him and just look. Tony's too tough for his own good, and that's where we are in his career, right? I mean, Tony's willing to die. You know, a lot of people say that. You know, you hear Israel Adesanya, you hear all these guys say, "I'm willing to die in there." Look, man, talk's cheap. I know Tony Ferguson's willing to die in there because he shows it every single time he goes out there. That guy's not tapping. He's not tapping. You can rip his arm off and have him have a blood spewing nub, and he's like, "Nope, I'm fine, ready to go."
A blood spewing nub.
Yeah, but is Tony going to tap to that? No, he's not.
He's like Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward. I mean, like those types of fighters, just no matter what you do to them, you know, they're not going to quit. They're not going to. You almost do have to kill them to beat them, and we've seen a lot of fights like that over the years. And you know, Dill G says Hooker versus Beneil. No way. Hooker's at number 8. Beneil's at number 3. Beneil's never taken that fight. He wants a title eliminator at least, and he's going to get it at number 3. Jeff, I thought in the octagon when he called for that, I thought, you know, it's nice in theory, but there's no way he's getting that now. But the way that he jumped up over everybody in the rankings, you know, Hooker, RDA, Ferguson, McGregor, and Chandler, he's positioned to fight a Justin Gaethje. He's positioned to fight the loser of Poirier and McGregor. He could be an injury away as a replacement in a title fight at this point, ranked number 3. We just saw the 3 and 4 guys fight for the title. So my question is, Jeff Cain, and all of you in the chat, Chrissy J says, Jeff speaking facts, right? Who would you like to see get in there? Which matchups do you want to see the most in this division? I know it's Poirier and McGregor, but Gaethje, who do you want to see him fight? Who do you want to see Chandler fight? Gaethje's not fighting Chandler right now off a loss because Gaethje wants a title fight. So who do you want to see fight next? Do you want to see Ferguson and RDA, Ferguson and Islam? I don't want to see Ferguson and Islam because Tony's been so badly out-grappled in his last 2 fights. It'll just be more of the same if he loses that fight. But I can't. I would love to see Conor fight anybody at the top of that division. I'd love to see, you know, Michael Chandler fight Gaethje. I'd love to see, you know, Poirier and Gaethje run it back. I'd love to see Dariush fight any of those guys. The fight I'd want to see the most is Oliveira and Khabib, but the other matchup for Oliveira that I'd like to see the most is Poirier. So I'm going to start at the top, Jeff. The number 1 matchup I want to see for Oliveira is Poirier if there's no Khabib. The number 1 matchup I want to see for Gaethje is the rematch with Poirier or a fight with Chandler. The fight I want to see with Dariush, really matchup-wise, would be Oliveira, but I think I'd want to see him fight Poirier first.
Yeah, look, I like those matchups. I want to see Dariush against Oliveira just because of the ground game. And look, they're such good guys. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a hell of a lot of smack talking there. There'd be a lot of congratulating each other and building each other up. But that's a breath of fresh air, man, sometimes in this sport. Chandler, man. I mean, I'm a sucker for the Gaethje Chandler fight, but yeah, they're both coming off losses, so you're probably not going to see that. You know, um, so for Chandler, man, maybe RDA for Chandler right now. As far as Ferguson goes, I don't want to see him fight anybody up in there. You know, I think Kevin Lee would be a good matchup for Ferguson right now, because if you lose to the number 12th ranked guy, then and that's 4 losses in a row, Tony's probably cut from the UFC anyway. But I wouldn't give him, one of these strikers like Hooker or Felder. I just think that would be mean, to Tony at this point, considering he's on 3 losses in a row. So you kind of give him Kevin Lee. And I apologize for my text messages coming through. I fixed it to where I can have my text messages come through on the computer, and I certainly didn't expect to get 35 text messages while we're on the show.
All right, well, here is we have a couple clips we want to get to. We have Dana White talking about Tony Ferguson, and we have a clip from Beneil Dariush. So let's go with Beneil Dariush first. How about that? Beneil Dariush, easily the biggest win of his career on a big-time win streak, second longest win streak at the top of that division behind Oliveira, with a huge victory over Tony Ferguson, now in the top 3.
I hear you.
Check out that.
He had a tough 3 rounds. He couldn't stop the takedown. He couldn't get up from underneath Dario. And
Dana on
Beneil,
Ferguson.
And he had a tough night. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Dana, just going off of that, I think Tony has landed something like 30 strikes in the last 30 minutes he's been in the octagon, which is obviously not a very good sign for a fight.
What has he had?
He's landed 30 strikes in 30 minutes, so obviously not a great output. Do you think this is a case of where that fight with Gaethje just sort of maybe started to wind down his career?
Yeah, it could be that. It could be just, time gets us all, so it's one of those things. I don't know which one or both, but unfortunately, it's definitely hit Tony.
Yeah, I know you don't do this stuff on the night of the fight, but do you maybe start thinking like, well, look, he's looked so sort of uninspiring that maybe we should start looking at having that conversation with him, or do you let him make that decision still at this point?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. He's tough as hell, though, man. He was in that heel hook, and his ankle definitely popped. I mean, his ankle, the rest of the fight, looked like a golf ball, and maybe even a baseball. And he kept fighting. There's no quitting that dude.
Same with the.
There it is, Dana White on Tony Ferguson.
You just have to understand because it's Tony Ferguson, or did you take that a little personal?
Nah, it's not personal. But I will say this. They better not be fickle. The same fans that just cheer Tony on like that, they better cheer for him every single fight. I better not see those stupid comments about Tony. He's done, he's this, he's that. You're going to support him throughout his whole career. Don't support him just for the day, and now that he's not doing well, like, forget about him. So
What's your thoughts? I mean, how did you feel about the performance overall?
Here he is again on his performance.
How did he not tap to that heel hook? Like, his knee popped, and it popped loud. I saw his face change for a second, and then he went back to normal, and then he started kicking me in the body. And then, that up kick he hit me with, that was pretty good. I'll give him that. That's my thought on the fight so far.
Fair enough.
We didn't get a chance to speak to Tony tonight, but you said you heard his knee pop. If you had to guess, what sort of damage is he carrying right now?
Man, I don't even want to guess, man. I hope nothing happened to his knee. Because that's where your ACL goes. When you go for a heel hook and it pops like that, your ACL could be gone. And I know he's a superhuman, and we've heard it over and over again, but I don't want that on anybody. I don't want that recovery for him. I hope he's fine.
When he didn't tap, but he did grimace in pain, I don't know if he yelled, but he certainly showed the pain in his face. What's going through your mind when he's not tapping to that?
Okay. Shock is the first thing, but I'm like, I saw him grimace, and then I went for the same thing, and he just zombie mode and started kicking me. I was like, fine, I'll come on top, you jerk. That's how I was thinking. Like, man, let's just end this. But nah, he's like, no, I'm good. Let's just continue this crap. I was like, all right.
Do you think there's anyone else in the UFC who doesn't tap in that?
There you go. Beneil Dariush, I mean, that's Dana thought it was the ankle. Beneil thought it was the knee. Whatever it was, man, it just.
It's the knee.
I mean, you watch it again, and Tony. I mean, look, same thing with the armbar against Oliveira and the punches against Gaethje. I mean, they're like Dana said, there's no quit in that guy, and he's right. There isn't. But when do you have to save a guy from himself? Although, like we said, not a lot of damage the last 2 fights, so I'd give him another shot. But if he takes another beating and he gets badly outclassed again, then I'd start thinking about the end.
I mean, that's what I don't like the question. Like the question's out of context. You know, when you're like Dana, Tony hasn't landed but 30 strikes in his last 2 fights. Well, he got in 2 grappling matches. You know, there were only 50 strikes thrown. You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like that question is a bullshit question.
It is. It's Conor's planted guy too. It's not legit media. It's Conor's planted outlet that he has in his contract. It's not like it's MMA Weekly.
Yeah, I don't know who it is, and I don't know who it was. You know, but you know, it's a loaded question. It's a question asked with searching for an answer. You know, it's not a question just asked to, you know, out of honesty, looking for the truth. It's a question. It's a loaded question trying to set Dana up to say Tony shouldn't be fighting. Tony should retire. Yeah, Tony hasn't thrown a lot of punches in his last 2 fights because he got into 2 5-round grappling matches. I mean, I don't know. It's just out of context. I didn't like that question, but I digress on that. Look, is there anybody more laid back than Beneil Dariush on the planet? You know what I mean?
Right.
That guy.
Yeah, look at the real quick, Jeff. Before you get to Dariush, look at J.R. Manuel, Tony, and Mexican Warrior. You guys don't get that. We get that. Believe me, we do. And what's up, Afi MS? Good to see you. Said what's up, Jeff and Jimmy. And there it is, right there, Jeff. Bold and proud. MMA Weekly, the #1 MMA news outlet. Thank you, Santosh, and thank you for watching us from Nepal. From Nepal, go climb Mount Everest and send us a video, man. Selfie. Go do it. We can't do it. Go do it for us, will you, Santosh? You think you can do that? Can you get to the top? I think you can. I believe in you. But Jeff, what were you saying about Beneil? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to read that.
Is there a more laid back person on the UFC roster, or maybe in the world, man? I mean, that guy is the most laid back guy I've ever seen on the podium. Honestly, I mean, he's just like you know. I hope he's not injured. You know, I mean, even before when Tony was saying all the crazy Dariush was even keel, respectful. Yeah, man, I actually like the guy a lot more after this event week because I got to hear him more and hear him talk and see his personality more. And that guy's just laid back. But when you put him in the cage, man, he becomes a savage. And Tony Ferguson got to feel that on Saturday. You know, and Dariush is kind of where Oliveira was this time last year. He's on that long win streak. He's got this win over Ferguson, but people are still questioning his legitimacy. And he jumped up in the rankings because of the win streak, and nobody else in the division seems to be able to put together one.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this about that line of questioning also, and believe me, I'm not ganging up on the guy, but I also think to say that Tony's only landed 30 strikes in 30 minutes is completely misleading. You're not paying attention to the fights. You're not paying attention. They were grappling. You're not paying attention. You're just not.
Well, he's paying attention. He's asking a loaded question, and that's what I said. There's some dishonesty in that, you know, or in my opinion, there is. That's not a question. That's not a genuine question. You know, it's just not. It's a question fishing for an answer that you want.
Yes.
And so I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't like.
Not like he's the only one who does that, Jeff. In his defense, there are a lot of people who do that shit. It's never not obnoxious, no matter who does it. Yeah.
Careers have been made on it. Careers have been made on that kind of shit. I just don't like it. I just don't think it's honest. And you know, I don't even know what word to use. I don't want to. You know, I don't think that like your integrity is completely blown or anything. Look, I understand we're in the grind. You know, we're in the trenches every day, and if you can get an easy headline, man, you know, that's gold. Anytime you can get an easy headline, but you don't go fishing for one. You know, that's what I
no. And anytime the Mac Life can take a shot at Tony Ferguson, they're gonna do it because it's the Mac Life. That thought's gonna cross your mind because Tony's had a lot of things to say about Conor. And Conor always has a lot of things to say. But, you know, at the end of the day, man, Tony Ferguson has been badly outclassed, and most of it has been on the ground. So I believe the next fight that the UFC makes for him has to be a striker. It has to be. You can't give him RDA. You can't give him Islam. You can't give him someone who could take him down and do what Dariush and Oliveira did. So, then you're looking at somebody like I don't know, maybe a Felder, maybe a Dan Hooker, either one of those guys. We'll see. You mentioned Kevin Lee. He's already beaten him. Somebody, I'd say, Felder. I don't know. If I think Felder takes that fight. Felder or Hooker would be the guys, one of the two, or Connor. If Connor loses, I want to see Tony and Connor all day. That's the fight I want made if Connor loses, by far, is Tony and Connor. But I don't know if Connor does that either, because he's got either one of the Diaz brothers or Masvidal or a ton of fights that he can make coming off a loss, if he even would want to keep fighting if he keeps losing. And I don't see Connor doing that either. But I just don't think there are a lot of matchups right now at the top of that division that favor Tony Ferguson.
No, I mean, him getting out grappled like that is not a good thing. Like I said, because that division has a ton of grapplers in it. We just try to find a striker for him who's predominantly a striker, and we got the Felder, right? I mean, that's definitely the one that makes the most sense to me right now. I'd forgotten that he beat Kevin Lee because I don't have his record pulled up. I just threw out Lee because he was ranked 12th, and I was like, that's. Give him someone down at that point in the ranking.
That was the interim title fight. Gregor's going to take him down. All Gillespie's going to do is take him down and hold him there.
Yeah, skip over Gregor McGillespie. Yeah, don't put him in there
and
with
Islam.
Gillespie.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to find somebody for Tony to fight right now. But I wouldn't give him somebody at the top of that division. Tony's been fighting the top of the division forever and ever and ever. Now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Now's the time to give him that easy fight, give him the 30th ranked guy in the world, let Tony look good in one of these damn fights. He's earned that much. And then give him a swan song fight against somebody, in the rankings and stuff. But right now, I just think that Tony, and look, I'm not worried about Tony's health. This isn't like the Gaethje situation. After the Gaethje fight, I was worried about Tony. Tony, I felt like needed time off. He took a shit ton of head damage in that fight. The last 2 fights, Tony hasn't taken any head damage, he's gotten beaten, he's gotten dominated, but that's not my concern right now. My concern right now is just where the hell does Tony fall? I mean, is it a bottomless pit? Does the downward spiral stop? And so you got to give him somebody ranked, 11th, 12th, 13th, 15th, 18th, and see. Because if he can't beat somebody down there in the division, then it's probably time for Tony Ferguson to call it a day.
Legend, man. Absolute legend. And, his last 2 wins are Cerrone and Pettis, and those don't look as great now, and coming off those losses, and as his age, and I love him. He's a G. He's never going to quit. He's going to keep fighting. He says now he's pissed. I would never put it past him to come in and earn a big-time win over a higher-ranked opponent at some point. Never put it past his level of greatness to figure it out and put it back together for one last run. Never count him out. But right now it's not looking really good. And, Ryan Span's asking in the chat room about Hooker. And Hooker just got knocked out by Chandler, and Hooker's still in the top 10. Ferguson Hooker would be good. I'd love to see Hooker fight RDA. I'd love to see Hooker fight I'd love to see Hooker fight Connor. I'd love to see Hooker fight Kevin Lee. There's a lot of options there. But, Jeff, as I look at the rest of this card, and we're almost out of time here on the show, we got to wrap things up in a couple of minutes. I want to talk about one other fighter on that card who we haven't mentioned yet. And by the way, Jacare's in the same position as Tony Ferguson. I want to say a legend who's on his way out and just had his arm broken on the armbar by Andre Muniz. But I want to talk about Edson Barbosa because he looks like a killer at featherweight. He looks like a force to be reckoned with in that division, which is already loaded. But a couple more wins for Barbosa. That knockout over Burgos, where Burgos felt the effects a couple of seconds delayed, stumbled back and fell. Edson Barbosa's a beast at 45.
I mean, Edson's one of those guys that's been exciting to watch for years. He just can't. He's one of those. I don't even know how to say it, man. He's one of those fighters that looks so impressive when he looks good, and when he looks bad, it looks so bad that you're like, how the hell did he just put in that performance? It's just guy's got bad luck or something. I've seen him win fights and just dominate people and get clipped, and I'm like, shit, Edson. But Edson's been around a while, man. But I agree with you. Now that he's found that home in that division,
There's
He's
Burgos.
always been comfortable on his feet, man. I mean, the guy's always been comfortable on his feet. That's not been the areas where he's been getting beat. But yeah, if you're going to go out there and strike with Edson Barboza, man, you're gonna be in for a long night, and your legs are going to hurt like hell in the morning.
Yeah, and he lost 4 out of 5. Including, Khabib, Kevin Lee, Gaethje, and Felder. I mean, come on. And then he loses to Dan Ige at his featherweight debut in a split decision. Lost to Paul Felder in a split decision. Gaethje knocked him out. Lee with a TKO, and Khabib with a unanimous decision. Didn't finish Barboza in a 3-round fight in 2017. But, he's definitely a great striker. Certain guys would give him, I think Volkanovski would be a terrible matchup for him. Certain guy, I'd love to see him fight Max Holloway. I mean, you kidding me? Barboza and Holloway, that'd be awesome. I would love to see that fight. But, other than that, I mean, he's been around a long time. He's a Muay Thai guy. He's won submission grappling tournaments. He's a great striker. His kicks are some of the best we've ever seen. So props to Barboza. I don't know if he's a title contender, but he's definitely a force to be reckoned with, who at the very least is going to be the guy who people have to go through to get to the top of that division. So props to Barboza. Anybody else, Jeff, before we wrap it up, who really stood out to you over the weekend? You want to throw some props out too?
I mean, definitely Barboza. I mean, but Barboza's been around a minute, and props to him for, because he might be coming into his own right now. And then Dariush, I think that Dariush, a lot of people are kind of downplaying that win over Tony because it was Tony's 3rd loss in a row, and it was the 3rd time Tony didn't look good. And all those things are true. But props to Beneil Dariush, because that was the biggest win of his career. It catapulted him up into title contention now, somewhere that he hasn't been in his career. And plus, he's such a nice guy, right? And then looking at the rest of the card, man, I don't, Lando Venata. I mean, can you get in a fight that's not a war?
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a good fight. Actually, props to KGB Lee, Andrea Lee, because
I was just gonna say her 3-fight losing streak snapped with a big win.
Man. Yeah, and she was hurt in that fight. That was sort of a do or die situation. If she didn't end that fight there, I don't know how much her leg was compromised, but it looked pretty damn compromised to me. And so props to her for that, because look, it's easy to, I mean, I don't want to say that it's not easy to win, but it's a hell of a lot easier to go into the gym every day when you're on a win streak, man. Whenever you're on 3 losses and 2 losses in a row, and the pressure mounts, that's when you find out who people really are. And Andrea Lee showed that on Saturday, man. I mean, she's not ready to quit. Her UFC contract could have been on the line, and she pulled through it and got a kind of a dramatic win. So props to her. And then, Charles Oliveira, man. I mean, do Bronx. It's his time now. We'll see how long he can hang on to it.
Yeah, and I also wanted to throw a shout out because the $75,000 bonuses: fight of the night, Barboza and Burgos; Oliveira, performance of the night, along with Christos Giagos with the choke. That was a rare choke against Sean Soriano. So it was the first fight of the night, buried in the early prelims, but man, that was impressive too. Giagos, jiu-jitsu wizard.
Yeah, that was not a choke that you see. It's sort of like a Darce choke. I had to look it up because I've been calling that. It's not a Darce, but it is a Darce. So I kind of call them.
Is it Bravo or Bravo? I didn't see it.
I think it's Bravo.
How do you pronounce it?
I think it's a Bravo.
Bravo.
Choke.
Yeah.
I think it's Bravo. Yeah.
So too.
But you set it up the same way as a Darce. It's just you finish it differently. Crazy choke. Not something you see every day, man. Not something you see every day at all. Yeah, props to him for that. And the bonus, man. Now, here's my question: is now that the UFC's gone to $75,000 bonuses for this event, how do you take that back? How do you take that back? Was like, what? We're just a $50,000 event.
They did it before. They did it in Houston years ago, and Tony told the story of Travis Brown. So they did it in 2013, I believe, and then they went back to the 50. But I believe they should be $100K. It should be a 6-figure bonus for these guys and these girls in these fights. It should be for the low amount of pay that they receive, comparatively speaking, to other athletes in other sports. That's one thing Bozo Jake Paul's right about. Fighters trapped in contracts where they don't make a lot of money and don't get the fights they want. He's not wrong. If you saw the interview with Chael, but those bonuses are a big thing for a lot of these fights. Most of these fighters, and on the lower end of the card, Jeff, the bonus is more than their pay.
Yeah, well, see, this is what I think the UFC should do. Because, look, If you're going out there and you're on the early preliminary fight card and you get a bonus over these ranked guys and these established people in the top of the division, your ass absolutely should get $100,000. You just outshined people, that are stars. And so I would like it tiered that way. Like if you're the number one guy in the world, yeah, it's $50,000. If you're on the early prelim and you log a performance that we're going to consider a performance of the night or a fight of the night on a card that has established veterans and ranked contenders and shit, it's $100,000, maybe even $150,000, because the UFC's so getting their money's worth out of those guys. Those guys are fighting for next to nothing, and they're mainly fighting for a win streak so they can renegotiate their contracts. I mean, at the end of the day, when you make your UFC debut, that's what you're doing. You're trying to get more sponsors, and you will because you're in the UFC. But what you're really trying to do is put together that win streak. So when you sit down with UFC matchmakers and their lawyers, you have negotiating power to up the ante on that second contract. But yeah, if you're an early preliminary fighter and you're making your UFC debut and you knock out like what Michael Chandler did to Hooker, that was worth out $250,000, right? I mean, and so. But if you're an early prelim guy, nobody knows who the hell you are, and you come out and put on a performance like that, I would like to see that bonus tier higher than if a main card fighter did it. We expect the main card fighters to do it. When an early prelim guy does it, we should reward them heavily because they're not getting rewarded with their fight bonus or their fight purse.
All right. Well, I think there's only one way to wrap up this show, Jeff, and we got to hear Dana White just for the sheer entertainment value because someone provoked him in the post-fight press conference and mentioned Triller and Ryan Kavanaugh, who's been blowing up Dana White's phone. And this is so entertaining and it's so Dana White. I've been reading it and showing it to everyone. So let's finish the show out and we'll wrap after the clip. If we still have that clip ready, Dana White talking about Triller and how he views them after the fight, because we're done breaking down this card with the fallout. So if we still have that clip, let's hear Dana talk about Triller.
Don't even ask me about these idiots. Who gives a shit? Does anybody give a shit?
I guess they
You do? Yeah, I don't give a shit what they think. You think I care what Triller thinks?
No. Are you sick and tired of them mentioning UFC?
I don't even take their calls. This idiot calls me every day. Text me every day. Please answer my call. Please talk to me. Why won't you talk to me? Because I don't give a fuck about you. Do your thing. Leave me alone. Go fucking do whatever it is you're doing. Knock yourself out. I could care less.
Thanks,
Yeah. I have no interest in talking to any of those idiots. They can do their thing. Do your thing. Stop talking about me. What do you give a shit what I'm doing? Go do your thing.
At some point, is it getting annoying that they only seem to ever talk about UFC fighters and UFC talent?
No, I get it, but yeah, get out of here. What are you doing? I don't even know what you're doing. What is this thing you're trying to build? What are you doing? And why are you talking? What do I have to do with it? What do I have to do with it? Or my guys? Do your thing. What are you doing? Are you starting an MMA organization? Or and then you got Oscar, this fucking idiot again in the car that night. Come with us and make more money than you've ever made in your life.
De La
You heard
Hoya.
that before. Chuck Liddell's here tonight. Grab him. Ask him if he made more money than he ever made in his whole life when he went with Oscar De La Hoya. You know what I mean? But you guys keep asking me about these idiots. You guys know they're a fucking joke, but you keep asking me about them when you know they're a joke. You know this is bullshit. You know they're all full of shit, and you know what I mean? But this is what you want. You want me to do this, and I tried not to do it, and I can't help myself. But I don't
Speaking
care
of
what they're
loaded
doing.
questions,
So go,
Jeff
fucking
Cain.
go away. Go do whatever you're doing. Stop texting me. Stop calling me. And stop fucking asking the media to ask me things, okay?
There you go. That's a perfect way to end the show, man. Uncle Dana letting them have it.
Yeah, and he's right. Yes, I think it's bullshit. Yes, I think those guys are all full of shit. Yes, I think it's a joke. But people ask.
Why won't
Dana
you
the
return my
question-
calls? Because I don't give a fuck about you.
But people keep asking Dana the question
Okay.
because Dana says that, right? Dana gives the response. He gives you the article. He gives you the
He
headline.
does, and he knows what he's doing. He wants to be asked that question. He wants to say that. Come on, Dana.
Well,
We know you wanted to say
well,
that.
Well, I've been around Dana when he's upset, and if he doesn't want to answer that question, he tells you that this is a UFC post-fight press conference. We just had a champion crown tonight, and if you want to talk about fucking boxing, get out. That's how Mad Dana reacts. So
White versus De La Hoya live on PPV.
Yeah, so he gave you the soundbite that they wanted. He gave the soundbite that he wanted. Dana knows what Triller's doing. Triller knows what they're doing. The media knows what we're doing. And it's just, selling headlines.
We know what we're doing. That's the question. We're not sure. But we just had another great show, and we want to thank all of you for being here. That's Jeff Cain. I'm Jim Grieshaber. MMAWeekly.com. Make sure you keep going there. I mean, it's just unbelievable what our team is doing with the website led by Jeff Cain and company, and also on Instagram, on Facebook. Let's keep those subscribe hits coming and likes and ring the bell for notifications. Keep them coming, guys. We love you. We appreciate it. The people who are here every week, the diehards for every show. We'll be back tomorrow with UFC preview, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, looking at this fight night coming up with that main event, Rob Font and Cody No Love. Can't wait for those two to throw down in the center of the octagon at the Apex, where, by the way, the rest of the year, Dana said, the UFC fight nights will be at the Apex while the pay-per-views will be out on the road. That's all there is. There is no more. MMA Weekly's UFC Fallout, UFC 262, Dubronx wearing the gold, Tony Ferguson in limbo, Beneil Dariush in the top 3. For everybody else, MMA Week, I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. Thanks for being here. Until next time, fight fans, keep your game tight and your mind right. We are out.